Until this last sentence, where you identified yourself as my daughter, I was about to say that while you cited my checkered career in all my various incarnations, you left out the most important part, and that is that you're my daughter, which I consider to be one of the top wonderful parts of my life. Now, I won't say exactly how many years, so I don't divulge your age, but a good many decades that you and your two other sisters and then a son have been the highlights of my life. I feel a bit guilty to keep all of you from doing this important work of writing, but Jill said I should talk for a maximum of 15 minutes, and I have a fancy watch here my wife just bought me, so okay, starting now, 15 minutes. I don't need to recite the bad news. The bad news is well known to all of us, which is why, one of the reasons why you're here. When I came to this country as an immigrant in 1947, a refugee from Nazi Germany, a totalitarian country, via a Japanese-run ghetto in China, I came to a vibrant democracy which is the envy of the world. And as a refugee, as an immigrant, I was welcomed. Immigrants in those days were not suspect, as they seem to be today. I came in search of, a new beginning, freedom, a new life, making something myself, trying to develop my potential. People wished me luck, and things worked out a lot better than I could possibly have hoped for. I managed to get myself an education because in those days, living in California, community college was free, and the University of California, one of the best public universities in the country, charged nominal fees. To be precise, $35 a semester. So that was $70 a year to go to one of the top universities, I would say in the world, but certainly in this country. And even I, having arrived with $65 in my pocket, could afford that by working, washing dishes, or doing, being a ticket taker, or working in a wax factory on holidays and so forth. In those days, one could work one's way through college. One of the big changes that's occurred that's no longer possible in this country. The notion that people would go to college and walk away after 4 years with $100,000 worth of debt just didn't exist in those days. And then my life, I was very lucky in my life. I started a family, good things happened, and over the years, with good fortune and hard work, I had a lot of interesting aspects of my career, including, as Jill says, in academic life first, in private industry, as the CEO of some major corporations, and twice in public service under 3 presidents, including under Carter, Secretary of the Treasury. It is from you. And incidentally, one of my incarnations in the government was as the chief trade negotiator in charge of the Kennedy round in Geneva, where Jill grew up with her sisters when we were stationed there for a while I was in the State Department and in the White House. The purpose of which was to negotiate tariffs down, so you can imagine how I feel when I watch what's happening on tariffs these days. So of course I ask myself, what's happened to this country? As all of you are asking yourselves, but I in particular. because obviously my earliest memories are of growing up in a totalitarian society. And so what I see and what I have seen may be a bit of a shock to you. It is a shock to me because I never expected this great free country to have to face these kind of problems. But what I'm seeing is quite familiar to me. In every aspect, what has been happening during particularly the second tour of duty of Donald Trump, is a typical playbook, well-documented playbook of authoritarianism. And I don't need to cite all of the different aspects of it. It starts with the egomania of the dictator, who tries to have his name and his photograph all over the place. Every office in Germany, and in Italy, and in Spain, and in Iran, and wherever, has a picture of the dictator. It's de rigueur that has to be done. So it's not surprising that Donald wants his picture everywhere and wants his name everywhere. That's part of what makes him go. The rallies in Germany, it was flags and well organized. More recently, the Praetorian Guards goes back to Roman times. The dictator had some special guards around him, protecting him and enforcing his rule, because he couldn't rely on the wider police and other forces that existed in the country. The revolutionary guards in Iran that are responsible only to Khomeini are just like that. The motorcycle gangs in Venezuela responsible for Machado are just like that. The SA, the stormtroopers, the brown shirts in Germany were just like that, and so forth and so on. And there you see a funny phenomenon, an interesting phenomenon. These Praetorian Guards, which the dictator uses to protect himself, but to enforce his rule, are dangerous to the dictator, because when they grow in power, they become a force unto itself. In the case of Germany, the SA became so powerful that Hitler feared it, and he had to decapitate it and had a new guard called the SS in order to control the SA. Today, when we think of what would happen in Iran if there were a regime change, it's the same thing. Most people say the reason we need to be very careful is because you wouldn't have democracy. You'd have the Revolutionary Guards taking over, because they are a force unto themselves. And ICE is a form of, or incipient, or modeled after a Praetorian Guard. It is separate from police forces. It's separate from the military. It does not, it tries not to observe the laws. I'll come to the trying business, to observe the laws. It answers only to the dictator, or the would-be dictator. In our country, it's still the would-be dictator. And that's the important point I'm going to get to in a minute. Mm-hmm. If it works, it becomes the major force in the country. Now, I wrote an editorial in the Wall Street Journal the other day, which was motivated by my observance that when I meet with my friends, and with people like you and others, I'm not saying that you do that, but around the dinner table at home in Princeton or here, my friends, who all have the same view, most of them are Democrats, not all, but most of them are Democrats, the same view that they're horrified by what is happening, has been happening here. I hear again and again very pessimistic views, and we're already on the road toward an authoritarian regime. And there's no turning around, and he's going to do this and kill this off and kill that off. Very pessimistic view of things. I wrote an editorial in the Wall Street Journal, and I said, I disagree. Whereas the last 14 months have been very bad and very dangerous, and Trump and more the people around Trump have used the playbook that I just sketched out and tried to move us in that direction, away from traditional American democracy toward a totalitarian regime, where it's not the Constitution that matters, but what the president, the dictator on top, says should happen. Whereas that resulted in a lot of damage that both domestically and internationally, that will take a long time to correct, and some of it will take a very long time to correct. So I don't minimize the very bad things that have happened, but there's one very big difference between what is happening in this country and what happened in other totalitarian countries in their slide toward totalitarianism. In Germany, there had never been a democracy except for the Weimar Republic from 1918 to 1933, which is 15 years. There's never been a democracy in Iran. There's never been a real democracy in Venezuela. There's never been a democracy except for an effort at one for 2 or 3 years in Russia, and so on. There has been a democracy in this country for almost 250 years. So to impose a totalitarian regime in this soil is a little bit like hardscrabble farmers moving to the most unfriendly, inhospitable ground somewhere in the hills of West Virginia and trying to grow the kind of fruits you're growing here in the Ventura Valley. It's pretty damn tough, because we have institutions and traditions that make it very difficult to impose a real totalitarian regime in this country for all kinds of reasons, as you can imagine. And you see, again, you see, first of all, we have 50 different states. We have 50 attorneys general. We have 50 legislatures in the various states with power dissolved to them, which is not so easy to take away from them. We have 3 branches of government with traditions of their own. We have a judiciary which operates unto itself. These can all be subverted, and to some extent they have been subverted, but only to some extent. And you see again and again when Trump wants to punish his enemies, or eliminate his enemies, or imprison his enemies, it doesn't work. We saw 2 days ago, the grand juries refused to indict. Independent judges stop things from happening. The Congress just voted for the first time, took them 14 months to do it, to question this whole tariff insanity. So what I'm saying is that I believe that it's by no means hopeless, and to impose a real autocracy, authoritarian dictatorship, a despot in this country is possible. I'm not saying it's not possible, but it's very difficult and highly unlikely. And Trump, who would love to do it, and most people around him who wrote this playbook, which his assistants are now trying to implement, find that it just doesn't work very well in this country. So I think there's hope. And why is there hope? Because of you. When I see you sitting here writing your postcards, this is American democracy. And this is all over the country. And it's not just Democrats. There are a lot of Republicans feel the same way. Some of them don't dare to say that. Part of a playbook again, that are the enablers. The dictator wants to reach for power. He can't do it on his own. He has to have enablers. And in our country, the enablers are not only the active MAGA people around him, they are the ones who join up because they see power for themselves or how to make money for themselves, or because they're afraid and so they don't say anything. So, but I have trust in the American voter. I have trust in our system. I have trust in the 250 years of democracy. And there is going to be an election in 3 years, I'm sure of that. And it's pretty damn difficult to subvert all of that and to get it done. Now, we live in very dangerous times, the last thing I want to say, and it will require special efforts by all of us to make sure that things don't continue to move in the wrong direction. To some extent, they will over the next 3 years, but we needn't panic. We need to work hard to make sure that it doesn't happen, in my view. And that means that we have to work very hard on the single most important thing that has not yet been, it's been attacked occasionally, but not yet in any way been compromised. And that is the vote. The vote. He's trying. He's trying. You heard him say the other day, I'd like to federalize vote. Well, again, he'd like to, but he can't do it because, you know, the Constitution says there's 50 different states that run their elections. Very frustrating to him, but he can't do it. So, what we need to do is, first of all, to be vigilant, to fight back, to have the courage to speak out, and above all, to concentrate on the vote, on exercising our right as Americans to vote for the people and the policies that we believe in, and to speak up and not to be afraid, to speak up and to act, just as you're doing here. And if we do that, we can already see that it is working to counteract the bad downward slide that some of us have feared. We saw it in the recent elections, gubernatorial elections in Virginia and in New Jersey, and in various other parts of the country, local election in Texas the other day, or strongly Republican district overwhelmingly went to the Democrats. The House elections this year will be critically important. If the House goes to the Democrats, it will be a further impediment in this very unfriendly territory where the totalitarian farmer is trying to grow his totalitarian regime. Too many rocks, he won't be able to do it. Even more difficult. And so what you're doing here with cards, but in other things, particularly to protect, and I would suggest you think about that. We're working on that in New York with my friends and others, and you need to do it here too. It's not just to write postcards and get people to speak up and to turn out, but also to organize your lawyer friends, to urge them to familiarize themselves with voting law, to organize yourselves and spend the money, if you can afford it, to go to, perhaps not so much in California, but to go to the neighboring states of Nevada or Arizona or wherever, or for poll watching, and in order to protect the sanctity of the vote. If a dictator, or would-be dictator, a tin dictator, as this guy is, a tin-buy would-be dictator, that's what it is, would ever able to compromise the vote so that the will of the people is no longer translated into reality at the polling place, then I think the future democracy of this country would be in great trouble. So that is why I basically said in my little op-ed piece in the Wall Street Journal, I am not as pessimistic that we are going down the same road the nascent democracies in Europe did between the wars. I am much more optimistic that in this country, with the institutions that exist, with the traditions that exist, with the attitude, the democratic attitudes, basic attitudes of voters and citizens all over the country, we have the resources, if we work at it, if we speak out, if we protect our vote, and if we get out the vote in November and thereafter, that this will be a tough, nightmarish few years that American historians will look back on and analyze over and over again, but it will be a passing phase, as it should be, and that we will return this country to the kind of democracy that attracted me and millions of refugees and immigrants that came here. All of you have no doubt, many of you no doubt have, if not parents and grandparents and great-grandparents. Some of you may be Mayflower Republicans, Mayflower citizens, but most of you are descendants of somebody who came here as an immigrant. If we all do that, I am optimistic that in the foreseeable future, I hope I'm still around to see it, I may not be, but you all will, we'll have somebody in the White House who observes the law, who understands the difference between a republic under the law, where everybody has the right to vote, and the freedom of expression, freedom of religion, freedom of disagreeing with what is said in the White House, as what is said at the top, and of his or her right to vote, then I think the future of this country, I am sure, will be assured. Thank you. I hope it's done.
Thank you.